Ready when you are, Jim.
Alright, so you've got 3 tracts right here. You've got your rubo spinal tract,
Just your red nucleus.
which is your red nucleus, which deals with what? Flexors or extensors?
Flexors.
Exactly, and why?
Okay.
Because Big Daddy ain't home, so Big Brother's going to take over. When Daddy ain't home, and Daddy deals with flexors.
So Daddy's cortex.
Yeah. Because remember, it's the 3 sons. Oh, I know your name. Your name is Rubospinal. And we're like, what? Daddy ain't home? Okay, whatever. He's not home. Red nucleus is going to take over, and he's going to be your flexors.
So why is Daddy not home?
In case he just needs extra flexion.
Okay.
But I mean, your dad, that's just how he gave it to us.
Yeah, that's how it is.
This has to do with flexion. This has to do with flexion. So that's how he related those 2.
Okay.
The other 2, which are your vestibulospinal tract and your reticulospinal tract, which is also called your pontine reticulospinal tract. These are extensors. So flexors here and here. Your extensors are your cerebellum, reticular fibers, or your pontine reticulospinal tract. Extensors, flexors.
Okay.
So, what you're going to do, or what the brain is going to do when Dad's not home or whatever, red nucleus is really easy. It's just going to come down. When it comes down, it's just going to come over into the lateral funiculus.
Lateral funiculus.
And that is it. Boom sauce.
And then it's just going to go out to your effector muscle.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to stimulate anything and go out to your motor, alpha motor neurons, your gamma motor neurons, all that good stuff. I thought I wrote something down.
So it goes into the lateral funiculus, that's it?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
In your lateral funiculus, oh, there it is. Like, if he gets specific, because it's motor, it's the anterior portion of your lateral funiculus. Because remember how we drew this thing?
Yeah.
And it was like motor, sensory. It's in the anterior portion of the lateral funiculus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what technically it's what the brain
Anterior
is.
portion of the lateral funiculus.
Yeah, because that's your motor. That's your motor part. So then that goes out to all the effector muscles that it needs to do. So that's that. Boom, done with that sucker. So first you have, well, not first, but next you have your medial and lateral vestibulospinal tracts, which are coming from your vestibular area. And so what this is going to do, it's going to have 1 going laterally, 2 going medially. And all this stuff right here is coming in through the ventral funiculus.
Ventral funiculus.
Ooh. Misspelled that, but can't really tell because it's all blown up. So these 2, right here, are your medial.
Okay.
This one is your lateral.
Okay, I have a question before you go on.
Okay.
So where does it get information from? Like, I don't know of a sensory tract that goes into this yet.
See, he didn't tell us, but we're assuming since, like, this is flexors and that's flexors, that's getting information from the cortex. We're assuming when I talked to Katie, she never told me what she said. She was going to go ask him, but she never told me what the answer was. We're assuming it's coming from your cerebellum because it has to do with extensors.
Okay, cool.
But I don't know. So your medial and your lateral vestibulospinal tract.
Okay.
Your medial will end up coming on both sides bilaterally, here and here. And remember that little chart that we drew? It looks like this. Flexors, extensors, distal, proximal.
Okay.
So you have your flexors, your extensors, distal, proximal. That's how this portion of it's set up. So it's right here. So it's going to affect your proximal extensors.
And that's just one of your medial.
No, this is your medial and your other medial.
Yeah.
Like it's going to go through the ventral funiculus and end up. It's not coming into the dorsal part, is what it's trying to show you. Like it's coming down straight into the ventral part. So
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And so this is going to. The reason it's bilateral is because it's like your extensors. You can't move your paraspinals. You can't move one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's your lateral, which your lateral will end up coming right over here, like these two. Medial. Right over here is your lateral. Your lateral is going to have one coming off on each side, whereas it has two from vestibular for medial, because you cannot, with your because your medial does your proximal extensors, so your paraspinals, everything right there in your paraspinals, like your multifidus, everything, because you can't flex your multifidus this way without relaxing it on the other side and keeping it taut to make sure you don't just boom break your spine. So these are constantly in a dynamic state with each other. The lateral only has to have one coming over here instead of shooting out two, because this other one's going to shoot out one over here and then two as well. Because I can move my right shoulder and all this stuff. I can flex and I can extend all this stuff laterally without having to move the other side. It's independent. So that's why this one's unilateral and these are bilateral. And that may be a test question. He may interchange those words. Like he may say the bilateral vestibulospinal tract. And he'll ask you, like, what is it? Where does it go?
That's the medial
That's
of
the
the
medial
vestibular.
One. And he could ask you, what does the bilateral vestibular tract innervate? And you'd have to say proximal extensors.
Okay, so medial is proximal extensors.
The lateral is distal extensors, but it's not distal as in like way down here in your fingers and stuff. It's distal as in like your axial skeleton, so like your shoulder. So your shoulder and your pelvic girdle is what it's extending, because I can extend this part back without ever moving this part. So I don't have to have that bilateral. This is why it's unilateral.
Cool.
So that's really the biggest thing with those two. And that's how you have a bilateral one here, and then you also have the one that goes 85-15 under the motor tract. It's also bilateral.
Yeah.
Like I said, red nucleus just comes down over there. Your pontine reticular spinal tract, he didn't ever draw this out for us. He just says, it comes right here. So we just assumed it does the same thing as the lateral. Distal extensors.
Okay. And that's also unilateral, obviously.
Exactly.
And that comes from where?
Reticular
Obviously.
fibers.
Reticular fibers.
Yeah, pontine reticular fibers. So not the reticular fibers down in the the medulla, but up in the pontine, up in the pons. So it would come down basically like that. And it's still going in the ventral funiculus. It's right there. Yeah.
That's 3 right there, huh?
Yeah, that's 3 tracks.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's not bad.